Well, hello there, everyone. How is it going? Oh man, we got comments already? Hey guys. I did it right this time, you'll have noticed. I did it correctly and I actually came to the stream that I scheduled. So, if you were here last week and you thought that I was going to pop up on that stream, I apologize. We've been here for like an hour? Wait, what time did I schedule it for? I scheduled it for 9:30, right? Fingers crossed. I'm only 3 minutes late. Please tell me you haven't been. Okay, you were just early. Okay, thank God. I was like, crap. I feel really bad if I've been making you guys wait an hour. How's it going, guys? Lieber is here. Marzalian is here. I think Sadie's maybe here. Max was here 40 minutes ago. Christian was here an hour and a couple minutes ago. Lieber asks me if I voted. Yes, I voted. I'm happy to report that I voted. I voted, and then about 10 minutes later, I got my flu shot. So I did all of the good, important adult things to do all at once. So, yeah. Yeah, did you vote? Lieber, don't remember if you're American. I will be 100% honest. Marsalian made it this time. Steven, hello, Steven, how are you, dude? You moved to New York. Oh, okay. You were in Canada at that time. Gotcha. Got little Butler Bulldogs. Steven, I was actually, okay, so the reason this stream is at 9:30 and not 9 o'clock is that I just got done with Butler basketball game with my girlfriend Megan. So my girlfriend went to Butler University. I live basically at Butler University. Oh, hello, Megan. She is now in the chat. And so we went and watched a game, and then I came home to stream. So I apologize in advance. I'm feeling really bad. I'm having some weird, my stomach feels really weird. Megan, I was just with Megan, and she said she was not feeling very good, and then the minute she left, I was like, ooh, I'm not feeling good. So if Megan got me sick, you guys have Megan to thank for that. Oh man. Yeah, I'm really feeling a little weird, but we're gonna persevere at least for a second. I also set up the tripod a little differently, so I hope this thing works out all right. Get the lighting a little bit better. Hello, Valentina. I know you didn't say hello to me. You said hello to my girlfriend, but I'm gonna take the time to say hello as well. Also, it was a good day. Butler won, so they played a really not great team, but they won, so it was good. I have had one beer already today, and I'm feeling a little poopy. Hey, Christopher. But I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to take a chance, guys. I'm going to go out on a limb and try something crazy, which is just a random beer that was in my fridge from that six-pack thing I bought the other day. The art on this thing is worth taking a second to look at. This is crazy looking. It's called the Citra Express, C-I-T-R-A, from 18th Street Brewery, which I think is, yeah, it's from Hammond, Indiana, small town of Hammond, Indiana. They have some really good art. So it is a session pale ale. Yeah, it's got a rail car going off of the rails. So we'll see how it is. Let's see here. Megan is saying that there are Tums. She knows my room. There are Tums right there, and she's correct. My problem is that as soon as Megan left, I had to try and set up the streaming setup, and now my Tums are unreachable, because if I try and go over there, I'm going to knock all this stuff down. So I have no idea how much alcohol's in this thing. I kind of don't want to look because I'm already not feeling good. And the smart thing to do is keep drinking, right? I've had exactly one beer. Okay, I hate to do this to you guys, but you guys are supposedly at some sort of internet device. Would one of you who is on a computer and who can open another tab, would one of you take a look and see how much alcohol is in this thing? Again, it's called 18th Street Brewery, Citra Express. While you guys do that, if one of you would do that, that would make me really happy. I'm going to look up the make sure that the stream is working, first off. And 2, look up the poems that I want to read to you guys. So, let's see here. 7%. Okay, that's not bad. I can deal with 7%. That is good. Puddle says, hey Ryan, I just started watching your videos and I love your stuff. You've encouraged me to read a lot of books on my list and to get to work on my first novel. Heck yeah, keep working on that. That's good. Yeah, what is the blame hose? The blame hose? I also laughed at that. Is Hammond in Hamilton County? Steven, that's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to it. I'm going to be honest to you. We've been friends for a long time. I'm going to tell you when I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. Not exactly a medicine for your stomach. I know, right? Let's see here. I bought an Ada Limon book yesterday. I had a bad day, and I needed to be cheered up, so I bought a book. Sadie, I saw that you had a bad day. I'm sorry about that, first off. Which Ada Limon book did you buy? Because, I'll be honest with you guys, one of the reasons I was 3 minutes late is that somewhere on this freaking bookshelf that needs organized is the book Bright Dead Things by Ada Limon that I wanted to read from today, but I could not find it. It's somewhere, unless I have lent it out to a friend, which is very possible. I have a friend who is going to one of her readings. Luke Dowdy, if you are out there and you have my Ada Limon book, I'm going to be very upset. That's the one that Sadie bought. Sadie. Dude, I watched Ada Limon read from that collection probably 2 years ago now. 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago this month. Man, it's good. Sadie, also, I should tell you that when she was reading from that book, there's a book in there about women/women horses, maybe, and you should read that poem. We had it read to us, having, not going to give you too many details, but basically at a very vulnerable time, approximately 2 years ago, 2016, around November time, when it was a really hard time to think about the role of women in America, just vaguely pointing you to a certain thing that happened in November of 2016. It was a little bit hard to think about your role as a woman in America, or to think about loving women in America, or wanting women to succeed in America. Am I getting my point across? Anyways, Ada Limon read that poem. Yeah, that's the one that you're talking about. Ada Limon read that poem, and I cried for like 3 days straight. So yeah. Let's see here. What else is going on? What do you think about reading some translations? I don't read enough translations. I don't read enough international lit in general, and that is a problem. I'm torn in a couple directions. I'll be honest with you. Right now, I'm reading 2 books at once. I'll talk about them a little bit later, but they're both about American history a little bit, specifically the history of like the last 10 years. So not really, distant history, but I'm reading about like stuff that happened in America about 10 years ago. And I'm really loving it. The problem is, of course, that I should also be reading international stuff, and there's not enough freaking time to read the books that you want to read, turns out. So, Lieber says William Gay is similar to Cormac McCarthy. Christopher Bolaño's Amulet, which I have not read. Is Amulet long or short? With a title like Amulet, you would think that it would be short. Am I correct in that thought? Okay, real quick. We're almost 10 minutes in, and I gotta... Where is my water? I don't even know. I'll find it later. I gotta find the poems that I'm trying to read to you real quick. So, this book is called Into the Snow. Oh man, speaking of translated stuff, I'm not gonna pronounce this person's name correctly. Genadai Agi is my attempt. Translated by Sarah Valentine. This is a book of poems I read a couple years ago. I know it's really hard to get the paper or the screen to white balance, but it is almost an entirely white cover, but it's got these little flecks. I think it's because it's recycled paper, but also a lot of the poems in here are about snow, and so it just looks beautifully like snow, and I really love it. So I am going to, I'll read you the bio about Genadai Agi real quick, so that you know who this is, because I had no idea who this was before I started reading. Genadai Agi, 1934 to 2006, is widely considered to be one of the great avant-garde poets from the former Soviet Union. He was born in Chuvashia, then a Soviet republic, and moved to Moscow in 1953 to study at the Literary Institute. Though Aegis' poetry was not published in the Soviet Union until the 1980s, his work was widely translated and he received numerous honors, including multiple nominations for the Nobel Prize. Sarah Valentin, the translator, is a poet and translator with a BA in Russian Studies and Creative Writing from Carnegie Mellon, etc., etc. Visiting assistant professor at UC Riverside. Into the Snow is her first book of translations. So this book, I liked it a lot. There are a couple poems that I'm not going to read that are a little bit more avant-garde-y. For instance, let me find one real quick so I can show it to you. What the crap was it? Oh no, I just had it. Oh my goodness. Basically, there's poems with like geometric shapes in them and colors. And that would be really intense for reading aloud, including that one, which has sheet music, and I don't know how in the world I would read it. But yeah, it's not a ton of that. Like, it's not terribly experimental in that way, but yeah, I want to read just some of the poems from this. So let me find real quick. I'll stop talking and find the poem that I want to read. So the first one is just called Once Again Into the Snow. The title of the book again is called Into the Snow. Where is it? Once Again Into the Snow by Gennady Agi, translated by Sarah Valentin. And you begin to sing, and I am disappearing slowly into the snow like before, a figure darkening in the dusk somewhere far away, and the broken board appears there. Among the ruins in the abandoned shack, they sang, whispered, then cried long ago. It seems from great joy. And in the distance, the forest, as if in a dream, opens, and you are singing, though you needn't, for it is already over. You go on, though even without us, eternity is already ripening, shimmering like gold. You go on, though you've become too muffled to sing. It's so so very fragmented, and like he interrupts 3 different times there with the word though. All right, let me find it real quick. It's a very very lonely set of poems too. Lonely and hard. In a good way though. In a good way. This is a really good one. There are a couple different poems in this collection called Silence. There are also a lot of poems that use a lot of white space on the page. So as you can tell, this is a very blank space is important to this collection of poems. Anyways, this one's called Silence. It's one of the first ones called Silence in the book. Silence. As if through bloody branches you clamber toward the light. And here, even dreams are like a network of tendons. What can you do? We on earth play at being people. But there are refuges of clouds and partitions of the dreams of God and our silence, which we have broken because somewhere in the depths we made it visible and audible. And here we speak with voices and are seen in shades of color, but no one will hear our true voices. And having become purest to light, we will not recognize each other. I like this a lot. Let me find, there's one more I think I want to read before we go to something else. Okay, yeah, this one's called Field. Hey, Sadie, it's my absolute pleasure. I'm happy to do it. Let's see here. This is a nice poem, Lieber says. Yeah, I don't know which one of the two it was. Probably the first one it looks like, but yeah. Oh, wow, Valentina translates. No way. God, yeah, that is a challenge. Valentina is working on a James Joyce translation and an adaptation of Don Quixote with an inspiration from DFW. That Sounds incredible. Also, like a lot of work. So God bless you. God bless you. Lieber, I love that quote that you just put there. Wow. Okay, there are a couple ones, yeah. Steven started reading Plainsong by Kent Haruf this weekend, and I really love it so far. Has anyone read any of his work? I don't know a whole lot about the author. Plainsong. What kind of work is it? Is it fiction, poetry, nonfiction? Borges. Yeah, let's see here. Thus spoke Zarathustra, very good. Okay, last poem I'm gonna read before I move on to something else. Oh my God, excuse me. This one's called Field Without Us. Field M dash without us. The road glimmers ever closer, like it's singing and laughing. Light, though full of mystery, as if shining brighter with its own light. God, endless and sudden. Oh, let it not falter, let it reach that abandoned little tree. Swallows sing, shining like air. Over the field, ever closer, the wind blows, with something already homey. Road, like a whisper, like someone's breath at the door. It's my favorite ending to a poem maybe ever, like someone's breath at the door. That's a feeling. That's a feeling. Yeah, that's a feeling. Anyways, that was selected poems from Into the Poems. Wow. Selected poems from Into the Snow by Jenade Agi, which I'm definitely mispronouncing, translated by Sarah Valentine. I'm gonna have to get my water because otherwise I'm gonna trip all over my words today, and we're all gonna suffer through this Kurt Vonnegut here in a second. So give me 2 seconds. Hopefully not gonna knock over any of the setup here. Oh, how are we doing tonight? How's our Monday been so far? It's been a whole week since I've made a video, which sucks. I was trying to get a Pale King video done, and then I'm working on another little bit quicker one, and neither of them got done. I was gonna hopefully get them out Saturday, but I had a really busy weekend, so. That last poem gave me the chills. Steven, I miss reading poetry with you in person a lot. Sporadic Reader says, hello, sorry I'm late. It's okay, Sporadic, you just missed 3 beautiful poems from Jenade Agi, but you have the rest of the live stream. We get to hang out. Stan Lee just passed away. Yeah, I know. I am going to be honest. I never read a single comic book other than, Watchmen, which I don't think counts a ton because a lot of people read Watchmen. It's a whole graphic novel-length graphic novel. I never read any comic books, which sucks. I loved a lot of the Marvel movies, though. Yeah. I also had a lot of friends who, a lot of my nerdiest friends read comic books and kind of, found solace in them while they were younger, and that makes me really happy. So, I was not that person, though. It feels a little bit like, I feel a little bit intimidated by graphic novels because I feel like if you start down that world, you need to, I'm a completionist, I would definitely need to finish whole series of the graphic novels that I was reading, and that would be a little bit intense, so. Oh well, I probably should someday. Yeah, how's everybody else doing? It has sucked that Stan Lee died today. Yeah. What are you, that's Kafka. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I love that quote. Redesigning a course for next semester, so it's been hell. Martzalian, what's the course? What course are we teaching? Megan is sleepy. I know this because she commented it, and also I was with her 30 minutes ago, and she was sleepy then, so. Lieber, and or any other comic book lovers in the chat, if you had to recommend one place to start, where would you start? If you had to, I don't know, knowing me, as little or as much as you know about me, where should I start with comics? If I were to do it, which this is not a promise to do it, I probably should, but Sadie's weekend was rough, but today was a bit better. Happy that we're helping to cheer you up. My weekend was pretty good. So I did I had a busy, like, kind of professional couple days, and then I had a busy family couple days. So then I went up north to where I'm from originally, hung out with my mom, saw my sister who's from out of town, my sister and husband, went to a family wedding, saw my grandparents, a lot of family time. So Daredevil, Born Again would be the place to start. Or Batman Year One, Batman The Long Halloween, Watchmen. Watchmen's really good. I loved Watchmen a lot. Yeah. I love it. Writing/rhetoric, but for next semester, it'll be about various international authors. Interestingly, we were just talking about that a bit ago. Yeah, anybody interesting you're going to include in that course that, yeah, anybody interesting? Julian Baker, yeah. Dude, you're seeing her on Thursday. That's incredible. Man, speaking of sad times, Julian Baker is a good one for the sad times. Julian Baker's awesome. She's like a little ball of energy, positive energy that writes really sad songs. She covered a Death Cab song that I don't remember which one it is, and I really liked it. So, yeah, big fan of Julian Baker. I've not followed her most recent album, although she does have a collaboration album she's doing with the lead singer from a band called Snail Mail. I'm trying to remember what their collaboration is called, but I'm really excited for that. Boy Genius, that's what it's called. It's 3 female artists, and their band name is Boy Genius, which is really good. The National, I love The National. God, it's been a second. Phoebe Bridgers, yes. Phoebe Bridgers' song Smoke. I should know this because I listen to it about once every 3 days. It sounds like the Twin Peaks theme song is the song that I'm thinking of. Smoke, what's that called? Smoke Signals, there we go, yeah. I just looked down at my computer and saw your comment, so I didn't actually think of it myself, to be clear. Yeah, Smoke Signals, very good. Motion Sickness. Killing Joke is so good. Death in the Family. Let's see here. Alan Moore scares me. Yeah, me too. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to do my best to walk you guys through what we have covered so far in Breakfast of Champions so that when we start reading it, we know what's going on, if that sounds okay. I am going to... Actually, yeah, real quick before we do that. I am... unfortunately, I'm running out of poetry books to read selections from. I have like probably 6 to 7 more that I'm really excited to read from, and then maybe a couple more after that I could read from too. I can always go back to some of the other poetry collections, but I'm foreseeing a future in which I will be a little bit short on poetry recommendations to start off the live stream with. And I really like doing poetry first. Like, I think it makes you pay attention to the language in a really good way that fiction or longer form stuff doesn't. So I'm going to put the call out there. My email address is Ryan Horner, H-O-R-N-E-R, writes, W-R-I-T-E-S, @gmail.com. Ryan Horner writes @gmail.com. And if you would like, you can post them here, but I'm not going to have a chance to look them up. So if you would like, send me a link to a poem that you really like and would like read some point on the live stream, or a couple. Try and limit it a little bit. But yeah, if you want, send me some poems at some point, and I will potentially read them on the live stream. The added benefit is that I get to run into new poems, and you guys get to as well. So if you have any interest in introducing a couple people to some really good poems, do that. There you go. Megan, who I think is our only moderator on this YouTube channel currently, because I have not yet figured out a ton about how to do that. Megan, the moderator, posted my email address in the comments. So there you go. Okay, so Breakfast of Champions. We're I think 4 chapters in, as well as the preface, and I'm going to kind of bring you up to speed really quickly before we read either a chapter or 2 chapters. Yeah, so what we've got, this is also going to be a challenge because I've had a little bit of beer, and we'll see how well I can remember what we've got with Breakfast of Champions. Feel free to correct me as well. Marzalian is going to be teaching. Thank you for addressing this to me again, Marzalian. Susin Farr is one of the international authors that nobody has really heard of that I'll be teaching. Very interesting. I love it. I'll be honest. Haven't heard of he or she or they. So what's going on in Breakfast of Champions right now? We have Kilgore Trout, a fiction writer who no one in the entire nation has ever heard of, has ever read. He has written a lot of books. No one reads him. Apparently not a very good writer. He also has a bird. He has a bird that is kept in his cage, and at one point he tries to let him out of the cage, and the bird flies out into the room, and then he's gonna, apparently I think he's gonna go open the window to let the bird out, but before he gets a chance to do that, the bird gets out into the room and is like, heck no, I don't like this, so he flies back into his cage. And Kilgore Trout is like, oh yeah, that's a good metaphor for my life. So he gets, right before this happens, he gets a letter or an invitation from a Midland City Arts Festival, I think is the name of it, and he's going to go and do this reading at Midland City Arts Festival, and he's really surprised because no one has ever heard of his writing before, but he's going to go and do it even if it goes terribly. He's going to go out of his cage, and then once he's been out of his cage once, if he finds that he hates it, he's going to come right back to his cage, and he's going to live in his house forever and write his books and die in obscurity. That is our one character. Our other character, crap, I don't remember the name. Let me look at it real quick. This is the car dealer. Oh, crap, what's his name? Dwayne Hoover is a entrepreneur in Midland City who runs a car dealership and is having a breakdown of sorts. He has bad chemicals in his brain, which are like making him go crazy and making him do all kinds of weird and bad stuff. And at one point there's this really great thing. There's also like a weird narrator thing going on where I'm pretty sure Kurt Vonnegut himself is kind of a character in this novel, which is nice. So that's good. I'm very interested to see how that goes, because if you know anything about me, I'm a big fan of this stuff. So hello, Zaire? Zaire, I probably just said your name completely wrong. Please correct me if I did say it wrong. Hello, welcome to the stream. What we are about to do is read some more of Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut, which is what we've been reading a couple weeks in a row now. So we're going to keep reading that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've missed so far in Breakfast of Champions. I think that pretty much brings us up to speed. Let me look. I pulled up a summary real quick earlier, but it helps to note that Kilgore Trout writes science fiction. So, okay, so we had gotten through chapter 4, and I think the next 2 chapters are both very quick, and I don't know about the 3rd chapter. So we're going to read at least 2 chapters, potentially a little bit more, here in the lovely Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. Bear with me as I try not to mispronounce any of these words. All right, chapter 5. While Dwayne Hoover listened to West Virginia... Oh yeah, okay, so really quickly, what's happened in chapter 4 is that Dwayne Hoover has like lost his mind, and he's gotten in his car and he started listening to the radio, and there's a station from West Virginia playing. And he calls it a telepathic message, so he's listening to the radio. So anyways, while Dwayne Hoover listened to West Virginia, Kilgore Trout tried to fall asleep in a movie theater in New York City. It was much cheaper than a night in a hotel. Trout had never done it before, but he knew sleeping in movie houses was the sort of thing really dirty old men did. He wished to arrive in Midland City as the dirtiest of all old men. He was supposed to take part in a symposium out there entitled The Future of the American Novel in the Age of McLuhan. He wished to say at that symposium, I don't know who McLuhan is, but I know what it's like to spend the night with a lot of other dirty old men in a movie theater in New York City. Can we talk about that? He wished to say, too, does this McLuhan, whoever he is, have anything to say about the relationship between wide open beavers and the sales of books? It's also important to note, this book is so ridiculous, that Kilgore Trout's books are so unpopular that they have been used basically as like padding in porn magazines, because you can't just have pictures of naked people, you also have to have some sort of writing as a magazine, and so they use Kilgore Trout's really terrible writing. So, anyways, Wide Open Beavers. Trout had come down from Cohoes late that afternoon. He had since visited many pornography shops and a shirt store. He had bought 2 of his own books, Plague on Wheels and Now It Can Be Told, a magazine containing a short story of his, and a tuxedo shirt. The name of the magazine was Black Garter Belt. The tuxedo shirt had a cascade of ruffles down its bosom. On the shirt salesman's advice, Trout had also bought a packaged ensemble consisting of a cummerbund, a boutonniere, and a bow tie. They were all the colors of tangerines. These goodies were all in his lap, along with a crackling brown paper parcel containing his tuxedo, 6 new pairs of jockey shorts, 6 new pairs of socks, his razor, and a new toothbrush. Trout hadn't owned a toothbrush for years. The jackets of Plague on Wheels and Now It Can Be Told both promised plenty of wide-open beavers inside. The picture on the cover of Now It Can Be Told, which was the book which would turn Dwayne Hoover into a homicidal maniac, showed a college professor being undressed by a group of naked sorority girls. A library tower could be seen through a window in the sorority house. It was daytime outside, and there was a clock in the tower. Excuse me. The clock looked like this. Also, Vonnegut draws his own drawings for his books. The professor was stripped down to his candy-striped underwear shorts and his socks and garters and his mortarboard, which was a hat that looked like this. There was absolutely nothing about a professor or a sorority or a university anywhere in the body of the book. The book was in the form of a long letter from the creator of the universe to the only creature in the universe who had free will. As for the story in Black Garter Belt magazine, we're starting to connect the dots on how exactly it is that Dwayne Hoover loses his goddamn mind. As for the story in Black Garter Belt magazine, Trout had no idea that it had been accepted for publication. It had been accepted years ago, apparently, for the date on the magazine was April 1962. Trout found it by chance in a bin of tame old magazines near the front of the store. They were underpants magazines. When he bought the magazine, the cashier supposed Trout was drunk or feeble-minded. All he was getting, the cashier thought, was pictures of women in their underpants. Their legs were apart, all right, but they had on underpants, so they were certainly no competition for the wide-open beavers on sale in the back of the store. "I hope you enjoy it," said the cashier to Trout. He meant that he hoped Trout would find some pictures he could masturbate to, since that was the only point of all the books and magazines. "It's for an arts festival," said Trout. As for the story itself, it was entitled The Dancing Fool. Like so many Trout stories, it was about a tragic failure to communicate. Here was the plot. A flying saucer creature named Zog arrived on Earth to explain how wars could be prevented and how cancer could be cured. He brought the information from Margo, a planet where the natives conversed by means of farts and tap dancing. Zog landed at night in Connecticut. He had no sooner touched down than he saw a house on fire. He rushed into the house, farting and tap dancing, warning the people about the terrible danger they were in. The head of the house brained Zog with a golf club. The movie theater where Trout sat with all his parcels in his lap showed nothing but dirty movies. The music was soothing. Phantasms of a young man and a young woman sucked harmlessly on one another's soft apertures on the silver screen. This has been my dream from all of childhood. I've always wanted to get to talk to people about soft apertures and sucking. It's really good. Let's see here. And Trout made up a new novel while he sat there. It was about an Earthling astronaut who arrived on a planet where all the animal and plant life had been killed by pollution, except for humanoids. The humanoids ate food made from petroleum and coal. They gave a feast for the astronaut, whose name was Dawn. The food was terrible. The big topic of conversation was censorship. The cities were blighted with motion picture theaters which showed nothing but dirty movies. The humanoids wished they could put them out of business somehow, but without interfering with free speech. They asked Dawn if dirty movies were a problem on Earth too, and Dawn said, yes. They asked him if the movies were really dirty, and Don replied, "As dirty as movies could get." This was a challenge to the humanoids, who were sure their dirty movies could be anything on Earth. So everybody piled into air-cushioned vehicles and they floated to a dirty movie house downtown. It was intermission time when they got there, so Don had some time to think about what could possibly be dirtier than what he had already seen on Earth. He became sexually excited even before the house lights went down. The women in his party were all twittery and squirmy. So if you notice something here, we have Kurt Vonnegut himself as the author who starts this story and kind of inserts himself a little bit into this novel. Then we go one level in to Kilgore Trout, the novel writer, science fiction novel writer, who is currently in a movie theater in New York City watching a dirty movie. Now he's telling us about his novel idea, which is one more layer in, where Don is a human on another planet who is in a movie theater watching a dirty movie. So yeah, we're 3 levels in. It's great. So the theater went dark and the curtains opened. At first, there wasn't any picture. There were slurps and moans from loudspeakers. Then the picture itself appeared. It was a high-quality film of a male humanoid eating what looked like a pear. The camera zoomed in on his lips and tongue and teeth, which glistened with saliva. He took his time about eating the pear. When the last of it had disappeared into his slurpy mouth, the camera focused on his Adam's apple. His Adam's apple bobbed obscenely. He belched contentedly, and then these words appeared on the screen, but in the language of the planet. The end. It was all faked, of course. There weren't any pears anymore, and the eating of a pear wasn't the main event of the evening anyway. It was a short subject which gave the members of the audience time to settle down. Then the main feature began. It was about a male and a female and their 2 children and their dog and their cat. They ate steadily for an hour and a half. Soup, meat, biscuits, butter, vegetables, mashed potatoes and gravy, fruit, candy, cake, pie. The camera rarely strayed more than a foot from their glistening lips and their bobbing Adam's apples. And then the father cut the cat and dog on the table so they could take... Okay, I read that completely wrong. And then the father put the cat and the dog on the table so that they could take part in the orgy too. After a while, the actors couldn't eat anymore. They were so stuffed that they were goggle-eyed. They could hardly move. They said they didn't think they could eat again for a week, and so on. They cleared the table slowly. They went waddling out into the kitchen, and they dumped about 30 pounds of leftovers into a garbage can. The audience went wild. When Don and his friends left the theater, they were accosted by humanoid whores, who offered them eggs and oranges and milk and butter and peanuts and so on. The whores couldn't actually deliver these goodies, of course. The humanoids told Don that if he went home with a whore, she would cook him a meal of petroleum and coal products at fancy prices. And then, while he ate them, she would talk dirty about how fresh and full of natural juices the food was, even though the food was fake. What a chapter that was. That was chapter 5. I'm going to take a break for a second and read some comments. God, that was weird. Oh, Lord. This is my dream. This is what I went to grad school for, to read sexy, non-sexy comments on a live stream about eating. Yep. Let's see here. Farts and tap dancing. Yeah, that chapter covered quite a bit. If this is your dream, you're living it, man. I apparently am living it. Yeah, the drawings are awesome. I love the drawings. Ah, Megan is headed out. Good night, Megan. Let's see here. Ah, cool. Some really good poem recommendations. I'm excited. Let's see here. Alike, I think, is headed out. Goodbye, Alike. Oh, never mind. You were saying goodbye to Megan. I'm so bad at... Is Kilgore Trout the sci-fi writer who the protagonist from Slaughterhouse-5 reads? Yes. The answer to that is yes, I believe. I don't think I'm wrong on that. Sean. Hey, Sean. How are you? Let's see here. Commentary on pornography or censorship? I think it might be. At the very least, I think it's all up in that conversation. I think it's all up in that conversation. This is disgusting and so bizarre. Wild stuff. Yep. Zaire, did I ever say your name correctly or wrong? Okay. Which is pronounced like zoo, but with an E instead of an U. So Z? Ooh. ZR? ZR. Did I get it correctly? ZR? Did I nail it? I really hope that I nailed it, ZR. I really hope I'm not rubbing it in. Hello from Melbourne, Australia. Nicholas, what time is it in Melbourne? Wow. Close. Oh, crap, I didn't quite get it, did I? I'm gonna keep trying. Let's see here. 2 p.m. Okay, we have all the different times on the clock right now. Yeah, heck yeah. I was a little late tonight, so we kind of messed Europe up a little bit, but yeah. Okay, I'm attempting to get my courage back up to attack chapter 6. There's no way it can be possibly as weird as chapter 5, right? For those of you just tuning in, we're reading Breakfast of Champions. Just read chapter 5, gonna read chapter 6 now by Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah. Stephen Batchelder says, I think it's a coming-of-age story like the Epic of Gilgamesh. I can never tell with Stephen whether or not he's saying this seriously or making us laugh at the fact that this story about dirty movies, including the moving of Adam's apples, is a coming-of-age story. It's something. It's some kind of novel. Okay, chapter 6. Dwayne Hoover sat in the used Plymouth Fury in his own vacant lot for an hour, listening to West Virginia. He was told about health insurance for pennies a day, about how to get better performance from his car. He was told what to do about constipation. He was offered a Bible which had everything that God or Jesus had actually said out loud, printed in red capital letters. He was offered a plant which would attract and eat disease-carrying insects in his home. All this was stored away in Dwayne's memory in case he should need it later on. He had all kinds of stuff in there. While Dwayne sat there so alone, the oldest inhabitant of Midland City was dying in the county hospital at the foot of Fairchild Boulevard, which was 9 miles away. She was Mary Young. She was 108 years old. She was black. Mary Young's parents had been human slaves in Kentucky. There was a tiny connection between Mary Young and Dwayne Hoover. She did the laundry for Dwayne's family for a few months back when Dwayne was a little boy. She told Bible stories and stories about slavery to little Dwayne. She told him about a public hanging of a white man she had seen in Cincinnati when she was a little girl. A black intern at the county hospital now watched Mary Young die of pneumonia. The intern did not know her. He had been in Midland City for only a week. He wasn't even a fellow American, although he had taken his medical degree at Harvard. He was an Indoro. He was a Nigerian. His name was Cyprian Ukwinde. He felt no kinship with Mary or with any American blacks. He felt kinship only with Indoros. As she died, Mary was all alone on the planet, as were Dwayne Hoover or Kilgore Trout. She had never reproduced. There were no friends or relatives to watch her die, so she spoke her very last words on the planet to Cyprian Ukwinde. She did not have enough breath left to make her vocal cords buzz. She could only move her lips noiselessly. Here is all she had to say about death. Oh my, oh my. Like all earthlings at the point of death, Mary Young sent faint reminders of herself to those who had known her. She released a small cloud of telepathic butterflies, and one of these brushed the cheek of Dwayne Hoover 9 miles away. Dwayne heard a tired voice from somewhere behind his head, even though no one was back there. It said this to Dwayne. Oh my, oh my. Dwayne's bad chemicals now made him put his car in gear. He drove out of the vacant lot, proceeding sedately down Union Avenue, which paralleled the interstate. He went past his principal place of business, which was Dwayne Hoover's Exit 11 Pontiac Village, and he turned into the parking lot of the new Holiday Inn next door. Dwayne owned a third of the inn. In partnership with Midland City's leading orthodontist, Dr. Alfred Maritimo, and Bill Miller, who was chairman of the parole board at the Adult Correctional Institution at Shepherdstown, among other things. Dwayne went up the inn's back steps to the roof without meeting anybody. There was a full moon. There were 2 full moons. The new Mildred Berry Memorial Center for the Arts was a translucent sphere on stilts, and it was illuminated from the inside now, and it looked like a moon. Dwayne gazed at the sleeping city. He had been born there. He had spent the first 3 years of his life in an orphanage only 2 miles from where he stood. He had been adopted and educated there. He owned not only the Pontiac Agency and a piece of the new Holiday Inn. He owned 3 burger chefs too, and 5 coin-operated car washes, and pieces of the Sugar Creek Drive-In Theater, radio station WMCY, the Three Maples Par 3 golf course, and 1,700 shares of common stock in Berrytron Limited, a local electronics firm. He owned dozens of vacant lots. He was on the board of directors of the Midland County National Bank. But now Midland City looked unfamiliar and frightening to Dwayne. "Where am I?" he said. He even forgot that his wife Celia had committed suicide, for instance, by eating Drano, a mixture of sodium hydroxide and aluminum flakes, which was meant to clear drains. Celia became a small volcano, since she was composed of the same sorts of substances which commonly clogged drains. Dwayne even forgot that his only child, a son, had grown up to be a notorious homosexual. His name was George, but everybody called him Bunny. He played piano in the cocktail lounge of the new Holiday Inn. "Where am I?" said Dwayne. Wow, that one got sad. That chapter, that's the end of chapter 6. Got very sad. Let's see. What are we reading tonight? Hello, Chronic, how are you? Yeah, we're reading Breakfast of Champions, Kurt Vonnegut. So, I've been reading it every week. I'm liking it a lot. Let's see here. Stephen is making his very best case for this being a parallel to the Epic of Gilgamesh. And a good case it is, honestly. I'm a little bit intrigued and I'm buying into this. Valentina, what all are you reading? You said you're reading like crazy. That's awesome. I wish I was reading more. I'm reading quite a bit. I'm actually here in a second. When I'm done reading, I'm going to read one more chapter of this. When I'm done reading, I'm going to do my best to recreate for you guys the number of books that I have started without finishing right now in my life that I'm like basically currently reading. It's a really depressing number, and I thought that we could go through that depressing number on the live stream together. Yeah, that got sad really quick. Like, it went back and forth very quickly. We had a hilarious, weird, crazy chapter, and then we had a weird but sad chapter. The bit about Drano is an image that I can't get out of my mind right now. The volcano of Drano. Yeah. Let's see here. So much stuff to read. Yeah, it never ends. So much stuff to read. Okay. This one looks interesting. I'm going to look real quick and see how long... Oh my god, this chapter is really short too. Crap. Alright, we're reading one more chapter or 2 more chapters, guys. I'm going to need some votes now because I can't decide myself. The next chapter is 3 pages long. The one after that is 8 pages long. Are we reading a 3-page chapter or are we reading 11 pages total? You guys in it for 11 pages or do you want to just move on to something else? What are we feeling? This will give me time to drink my beer. Sadie is ever pleasant and says, just do what you feel. Ah, Sadie, I feel you. Lieber says a bad word in his comment, and so it has been held for review. But he said, the whole book, F it. 2 chapters, 2 chapters, 2 chapters. All right, cool. We're going to do 2 chapters. Yeah, I mean, it's only 11 pages, right? My voice will hold up for that long. Okay. Let's do it. The whole book, F it. I like your style. I like your style. All right. Kilgore Trout, Chapter 7, Breakfast of Champions, Kurt Vonnegut. Kilgore Trout took a leak in the men's room of the New York City movie house. There was a sign on the wall next to the roller towel, and it advertised a massage parlor called the Sultan's Harem. Massage parlors were something new and exciting in New York. Men could go in there and photograph naked women, or they could paint the women's naked bodies with water-soluble paints. Men could be rubbed all over by a woman until their penises squirted jism into Turkish towels. God damn it. This is my life right now. It's a full life and a merry one, said Kilgore Trout. There was a It's a full life and a merry one, said Kilgore Trout. There was a message written in pencil on the tiles by the roller towel. This was it. What is the purpose of life? Just when you thought it couldn't get weirder. Trout plundered his pockets for a pen or pencil. He had an answer to the question. Of course he did, because he's a smartass. But he had nothing to write with, not even a burnt match. So he left the question unanswered, but here is what he would have written if he had found anything to write with. To be the eyes and ears and conscience of the creator of the universe. You fool. It's delineated like that. That's why I paused. When Trout headed back for his seat in the theater, he played at being the eyes and ears and conscience of the creator of the universe. He sent messages by telepathy to the creator wherever he was. He reported that the men's room had been clean as a whistle. The carpeting under my feet, he signaled from the lobby, is springy and new. I think it must be some miracle fiber. It's blue. You know what I mean by blue? And so on. When he got to the auditorium itself, the house lights were on. Nobody was there but the manager, who was also the ticket taker and the bouncer and the janitor. He was sweeping filth from between the seats. He was a middle-aged white man. No more fun tonight, grandfather, he said to Trout. Time to go home. Trout didn't protest. Neither did he leave immediately. He examined a green enameled steel box in the back of the auditorium. It contained the projector and the sound system and the films. There was a wire that led from the box to a plug in the wall. There was a hole in the front of the box. That was how the pictures got out. On the side of the box was a simple switch. It looked like this. Valentina, my email is ryanhornerwrites@gmail.com, and if anyone else has any poems that they would like to send to me for me to read on this live stream, preferably poems by other people than yourself. If you want to send your own poems, that's cool too. I would read them depending on what they're like, but if you have any really good poems that you like, I'd love to read them on the channel. Okay, so anyways, it was an on and off switch. It intrigued Trout to know that he had only to flick the switch and the people would start fucking and sucking again. Good night, grandfather, said the manager pointedly. Trout took his leave of the machine reluctantly. He said this about it to the manager. It fills such a need, this machine, and so it's easy to operate. Oh, no, and it's so easy to operate. As Trout departed, he sent this telepathic message to the creator of the universe, serving as his eyes and ears and conscience. Am I headed for 42nd Street now? Nope. Read that wrong too. Am headed for 42nd Street now. How much do you already know about 42nd Street? Is that an homage to Douglas Adams? Like we just a second ago started this chapter with the question, what is the purpose of life? And now we're on 42nd Street. Is that an homage? It's gotta be, right? 42, the answer to everything. The life, the universe, and everything. Okay, chapter 8. Trout wandered out onto the sidewalk of 42nd Street. It was a dangerous place to be. The whole city was dangerous because of chemicals and the uneven distribution of wealth and so on. A lot of people I love that. You know how people talk about chemicals and they're just like, you know, chemicals. As in like, that's such a bad thing. Kurt Vonnegut has his like finger on the pulse of what makes America such a weird place to live. You know, chemicals and uneven distribution of wealth. A lot of people were like Dwayne. They created chemicals in their own bodies which were bad for their heads. But there were thousands upon thousands of other people in the city who bought bad chemicals and ate them or sniffed them, or injected them into their veins with devices which looked like this. Sometimes they even stuffed bad chemicals up their assholes. Their assholes looked like this. People took such awful chances with chemicals and their bodies because they wanted the quality of their lives to improve. They lived in ugly places where there were only ugly things to do. They didn't own doodly squat, and so they couldn't improve their surroundings. So they did their best to make their insides beautiful instead. The results had been catastrophic so far. Suicide, theft, murder, and insanity, and so on. But new chemicals were coming onto the market all the time. 20 feet away from Trout, there on 42nd Street, a 14-year-old white boy lay unconscious in the doorway of a pornography store. He had swallowed a half pint of a new type of paint remover, which had gone on sale for the first time only the day before. He had also swallowed 2 pills which were intended to prevent contagious abortion in cattle, which was called Bang's disease. What? Trout was petrified there on 42nd Street. It had given him a life not worth living. Wait, what? Trout was petrified there on 42nd Street. It had given him a life not worth living, but I had also given him an iron will to live. This was a common combination on the planet Earth. That is either a typo or that is Kurt Vonnegut introducing the I into this book. The narrator, the author of the fiction that is happening on the page right now. And I'm very interested by it, and my curiosity is piqued, but I'm going to move on because I don't have any answers yet. The theater manager came out and locked the door behind him. And 2 young black prostitutes materialized from nowhere. They asked Trout and the manager if they would like to have some fun. They were cheerful and unafraid because of a tube of Norwegian hemorrhoid remedy which they had eaten about half an hour before. The manufacturer had never intended the stuff to be eaten. People were supposed to squirt it up their assholes. These were country girls. They had grown up in the rural south of the nation where their ancestors had been used as agricultural machinery. The white farmers down there weren't using machines made out of meat anymore, though, because machines made out of metal were cheaper and more reliable and required simpler homes. So the black machines had to get out of there or starve to death. They came to cities because every place else had signs like this on the fences and trees. No trespassing. This means you. God, he knows how to get weird and sad all at once on a really big level. Kilgore Trout once wrote a story called This Means You. It was set in the Hawaiian Islands, the place where the lucky winners of Dwayne Hoover's contest in Midland City were supposed to go. Every bit of land on the islands was owned by only about 40 people, and in the story, Trout had those people decide to exercise their property rights to the full. They put up no trespassing signs on everything. This created terrible problems for the million other people on the islands. The law of gravity required that they stick somewhere on the surface. Either that or they could go out into the water and bob offshore. But then the federal government came through with an emergency program. It gave a big balloon full of helium to every man, woman, and child who didn't own property. There was a cable with a harness on it dangling from each balloon. With the help of the balloons, Hawaiians could go on inhabiting the islands without always sticking to things other people owned. The prostitutes worked for a pimp now. He was splendid and cruel. He was a god to them. He took their free will away from them, which was perfectly all right. They didn't want it anyway. It was as though they had surrendered themselves to Jesus, for instance, so they could live unselfishly and trustingly, except that they had surrendered to a pimp instead. Their childhoods were over. They were dying now. Earth was a tin-horn planet as far as they were concerned. Excuse me. When Trout and the theater manager, 2 tin horns, said they didn't want any tin horn fun, the dying children sauntered off, their feet sticking to the planet, coming unstuck, then sticking again. They disappeared around a corner. Trout, the eyes and ears of the creator of the universe, sneezed. You know how, so in Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, there's this line about a spaceship, which I will always remember, which is talking about, he's describing a spaceship falling from the sky and crashing. And the way he describes it is, the spaceship hovered and then all of a sudden didn't. And it's just like, oh, now it's on the ground. That is Kurt Vonnegut describing people walking. Their feet sticking to the planet, coming unstuck, then sticking again. God bless you, said the manager. This was a fully automatic response many Americans had to hearing a person sneeze. Thank you, said Trout. Thus, a temporary friendship was formed. Trout said he hoped to get safely to a cheap hotel. The manager said he hoped to get to the subway station on Times Square. So they walked together, encouraged by the echoes of their footsteps from the building facades. The manager told Trout a little about what the planet looked like to him. It was a place where he had a wife and 2 kids, he said. They didn't know he ran a theater which showed blue movies. They thought he was doing consulting work as an engineer so late at night. He said that the planet didn't have much use for engineers his age anymore. It had adored them once. Hard times, said Trout. The manager told of being in on the development of a miraculous insulating material, which had been used on rocket ships to the moon. This was, in fact, the same material which gave the aluminum siding of Dwayne Hoover's dream house in Midland City its miraculous insulating qualities. The manager reminded Trout of what the first man to set foot on the moon had said. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Thrilling words, said Trout. He looked over his shoulder, perceived that they were being followed by a white Oldsmobile Toronado with a black vinyl roof. This 400 horsepower front-wheel drive vehicle was burbling along at about 3 miles an hour, 10 feet behind them, and close to the curb. That was the last thing, the last thing Trout remembered, seeing the Oldsmobile back there. The next thing he knew, he was on his hands and knees on a handball court underneath the Queensboro Bridge at 59th Street with the East River nearby. His trousers and underpants were around his ankles. His money was gone. His parcels were scattered around him, the tuxedo, the new shirt, the books. Blood seeped from one ear. The police caught him in the act of pulling up his trousers. They dazzled him with a spotlight as he leaned against the backboard of the handball court and fumbled foolishly with his belt and the buttons on his fly. The police supposed that they had caught him committing some public nuisance, had caught him working with an old man's limited palate of excrement and alcohol. He wasn't quite penniless. There was a $10 bill in the watch pocket of his pants. It was determined at a hospital that Trout was not seriously hurt. He was taken to a police station where he was questioned. All he could say was that he had been kidnapped by pure evil in a white Oldsmobile. The police wanted to know how many people were in the car, their ages, their sexes, the colors of their skins, their manner of speech. For all I know, they may not have even been Earthlings, said Trout. For all I know, that car may have been occupied by an intelligent gas from Pluto. Trout said this so innocently, but his comment turned out to be the first germ in an epidemic of mind poisoning. Here is how the disease was spread. A reporter wrote a story for the New York Post the next day, and he led off with the quotation from Trout. The story appeared under this headline: Pluto bandits kidnap pair. Trout's name was given as Kilmer Trotter, incidentally, address unknown. His age was given as 82. Other papers copied the story, rewrote it some. They all hung on to the joke about Pluto, spoke knowingly of the Pluto Gang, and reporters asked police for any new information on the Pluto Gang. So police went looking for information on the Pluto Gang. If that isn't the most fake news paragraph I've ever seen, I'm shaking in my boots right now. This book was written a long time before today, and yikes. 1973. Solid. 27, 18, 73, 45 years ago? 45 years ago? Yeah. In one of New York City's many ghettos for dark-skinned people, a group of Puerto Rican boys gathered together in the basement of an abandoned building. They were small, but they were numerous and volatile. They wished to become frightening in order to defend themselves and their friends and families, something the police wouldn't do. They also wanted to drive the drug peddlers out of the neighborhood and to get enough publicity, which was very important, to catch the attention of the government, so that the government would do a better job of picking up the garbage, and so on. One of them, Jose Mendoza, was a fairly good painter, so he painted the emblem of their new gang on the backs of the members' jackets. This was it. Pluto Gang. And that is going to do it for the reading of Kurt Vonnegut today. That was awesome. God, this book is good. It's all over the place in terms of like pacing and where you're going to go next. I have no idea where you're going to go next. We're starting to settle into a narrative in like a present moment for the book. We're headed to the Midland Arts City Festival. Dwayne Hoover, I'm sure, is going to be there. I'm really loving it. I hope you are too. I'm looking forward. The real problem for me is that I'm looking forward to reading this book every week, and now I can't read it until Mondays, and so it makes me look forward to Mondays, which is good. But yeah, I have been wanting to read it in my free time, but haven't had a chance because I'm doing it on the channel. So All right. Gonna read some comments real quick. Oh no, okay. So Breakfast of Champions came out before Hitchhiker's Guide. Okay. For real? When was Hitchhiker's Guide? Because I feel like since it was a radio series, there'd have to be... I don't know. Lieber says, what makes us happy? I have no freaking idea. What makes me happy is knowing that I am not the only person who feels the way that I do, knowing that I'm not the only consciousness that feels like I do, that there are other people out there too. I don't like feeling alone. That's maybe more about what makes me feel bad. Just a bit after. Okay, yeah, 5 years after. Okay. Let's see. A Quiet Place. I like his scene, A Quiet Place. Yeah, that looked really good. I haven't seen it, but... let's see. Do you feel that all of Vonnegut's writing has this observational perspective, or is this specific to Breakfast of Champions? Man, I don't know. I mean, I feel it slightly differently between all of the books, but from what I've read of Vonnegut, which I'll be honest is not a ton. I've read Slaughterhouse-Five, Cat's Cradle, and then just some short stories. So, I mean, he's always got that, like, I think he works very hard to do that quick turning. Like his books don't go forever in one direction. They'll go in one direction for spurts, and then they'll switch directions, switch momentum. Yeah. Marsalian said, I'm American and I still don't even know what that was supposed to mean about the fake news thing. Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't say it very well. I just loved the line about, let me find it. I probably shouldn't, but let me find it. It's this like wild goose chase, right? Where Kilgore Trout says that he has been kidnapped by people from... he says, it's possible I was even kidnapped by a gas from the planet Pluto. A reporter writes a story making fun of that. Sarcasm on the internet, for instance, or in newspapers and writing doesn't always come across so well. So it says, Pluto bandits kidnap pair. Other papers copied the story, rewrote it some, aka they legitimized it. They all hung on to the joke about Pluto, spoke knowingly of the Pluto gang. There's that sarcasm. Reporters asked police for any new information on the Pluto gang, so police went looking for information on the Pluto gang. And then all of a sudden, because of this, like, it's been made more legitimate by coverage of it, there's this group of boys who want power in their neighborhood, and so they're naming themselves the Pluto gang. To me, that just sounds like coverage in American media right now is such a legitimizing, and I think it's been this way for a while, but it's such a legitimizing thing. Like, what you cover is made more legitimate. And when you cover something that probably doesn't deserve coverage, all of a sudden it's this, like, player on a national stage. When, potentially, without covering it, it wouldn't have been a player on a national stage. I don't know. Apply that to, like, the last 4 years of life in America, and you get a little bit depressed. Sadie says, I'm down for us to be called the Pluto gang. I like that. I would love a jacket like that. That'd be sweet. Oh my God, Marsalian, I owe you a big apology. I just read your comment saying, no, it was Tazair. Wait, which I'm still not saying correctly. ZR? ZR. I'm the worst. Man, it's so hard to stream because I don't get to see the comments when they're made, and so I don't know when they're referring to other people. I feel like a big old idiot right now. Just call me Jar. Okay, Jar. Thank you. That makes it a lot easier. Yep. Feel like an idiot anyways. So that's embarrassing. I'm blushing a little bit. You guys are all smart. Like, you probably got it the first time. I didn't need to explain it. God. Shouldn't have done it. Anyways, how we doing out there? Hi, Monday. Hi, Ryan. Happy Monday. Hey, Terrell. How you doing? We're just having a good time over here. We just finished reading. We read some poems. We read some Breakfast of Champions by Kurt Vonnegut. Probably going to, here in just a second, here in a little bit, read a short story and call it a night. I'm loving this. It is also a little bit longer later in the night, so I'm probably not going to be up too much longer. It's almost 11 here, but, you know. All I have tomorrow is I need to do some writing, so. We love you. It's okay. Thank you, guys. Pluto is no longer a planet. It's true. Screw Pluto. I'm just going to... The motto for the Pluto gang, which is what we're calling ourselves now, can be the whole book, F it, which was Lieber's comment earlier when I was like, how much of this book should I read? 1 chapter? 2 chapters? The whole book, F it. That's my, you know, that is my vibe. That's my Instagram bio now. The whole book, F it. Not literally, but... let's see here. McCarthy's last novel was in 2006. Was that The Road? That would be about the right timing. That was The Road, right? Yeah. Let's see here. What writing are you working on tomorrow, if you don't mind me asking? So, funny story. My life has changed a little bit. I am currently doing some freelance writing. Basically, I'm unemployed. Not exactly, but I'm a little bit unemployed. So I worked for a very long time at a shoe store, running shoe store. I worked for a year at a shoe store. I talked to people about running all day. It was a great job. I liked that job a lot. I had the opportunity to do some freelance writing, more like kind of marketing PR stuff, which is cool. I like this stuff a lot. I'm loving it. It is very, like, I'm working for myself. I work as a... Freelance is basically like a contractor, so you get jobs and then you do the jobs, and then when they're done, you go to other jobs. I'm currently doing a couple of different freelance writing jobs, also looking for other jobs after that, other gigs after that. So it's exciting. I'm loving my days right now. I'm like so happy day to day that I get to do this. Be an introvert, sit at my computer and write for a couple hours, tell good stories. That all makes me really happy. It's a little bit stressful because of the not knowing when the next gig is coming kind of thing. But overall, I would say 12 out of 10, really good life choice. I'm loving it. I'm gonna do it, and if it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, I've got faith it'll work out in the end. So, not that you needed to know that. Any criminally underrated TV show recommendations? I don't think Ozark is underrated because it's gotten a lot of good love. I am a couple episodes into Ozark, and I'm liking that a lot. Let's see, something really weird that's good. I'm not really thinking of anything right now. I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of Netflix at all. Veep. I've heard really good things about Veep. Let's see, True Detectives. Dude, my girlfriend hasn't seen Sherlock, so that made me about crap my pants the other day. I was talking to Megan, and we were watching Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, actually, the first movie. The second movie's coming out soon. And I don't know why, but I was thinking of Sherlock, probably because of British people, aka Eddie Redmayne. That's his name, right? He's awesome. And I was like, Megan, have you seen Sherlock? She said no, and I about crapped in my pants. That's the whole story. Oh my god, yeah, Twin Peaks, great choice, Chronic. Also, if you have not by now seen the absolute crazy movement that is Black Mirror, please watch Black Mirror. If you are an anxious person, it might be something to try out for yourself. You might not want to watch all of it immediately. But if you're an anxious person, watch the episode, it's in the 3rd season, called San Clemente or something. That one is a little bit happier. It's less panic attack inducing. Black Mirror is super scary and it's amazing. I love that show with everything in me. Very good. It's probably not underrated though. It's pretty popular by now. So, Mr. Robot looks really good. I haven't seen it though. Homecoming. Can't handle Black Mirror. Yeah, there are times where I can't either. If I'm in a like very bad place with my anxiety, I can't watch it. If I'm in a good place, I can watch it, but just barely. And my God, it's good. Yeah. The Goldbergs. Okay. Philly suburbs in the 1980s. Thought about reading more Murakami. Man, jar. I have thought about it. I definitely want to. I just don't have the time right now. Or if days were 30 hours long, I would be at a better place. But if they were 30 hours long, then we'd do all this other stuff with those extra 6 hours. Like, I would like for my days to be 30 hours long and for all of your days to still be 24 hours long, because then I could read a lot and I could make awesome videos about all the books that I'm reading. And you would think that I'm such a god for how much I can read. Instead, I barely get through books. I read kind of slowly. So, really quickly, I wanted to do this thing mostly for my own entertainment, which is to try and name all of the different books that I am in the middle of right now, which I have not actually finished. And that is, yeah, just the 30-hour days for me, to be clear. You guys can still have 24-hour days. No, that seems mean. We should all have 30-hour days, I guess. We'll all just agree to read for 6 more hours. Does that sound cool? We can sleep for an extra hour, read for 5 more hours. Okay, we can sleep for an extra hour. We can be outside for an extra hour, read for 4 extra hours. I just fear that this is what would happen with our 30-hour days, is we'd hedge here, hedge there, and all of a sudden it's just back to the normal amount of reading, and we would hardly be reading anymore. So, anyways, the books that I'm in the middle of right now, I'm going to count the 2 books that we have read, 1 book that we've read from today, 1 that we're about to read from. First, Breakfast of Champions, we're like 8 chapters in. Second, this anthology of short stories I've been working on for a very long time. I've probably read about half of them. I've got one that we're going to read here in a couple minutes. All right, so that's 2. Help me count here. There's a really weird book I started a long time ago called How I Accidentally Started the 60s by Howard Bloom, which I'm in the middle of. I started Wild by Cheryl Strayed the other day because I've been on a big old PCT kick, Pacific Crest Trail kick. I'm looking over at my pile. My Pacific Crest Trail guidebook for the Northern California section is something that I'm in the middle of. Currently, the thing I'm probably making the best progress on is a book called The World as It Is by Ben Rhodes. He was an Obama White House staffer and a speechwriter, actually. He's got an MFA in fiction writing. So he is like, man, he has a really interesting perspective on the Obama White House. He wrote a lot of Obama speeches and kind of was there day to day in the 8 years. So I'm in the middle of that, almost done with it. Then, crap, I'm using my phone, and I cannot use my Audible on my phone to tell you what audiobooks I'm reading. I'm also reading The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver from 538, which is a nice nonfiction look at like probability and statistics, and also right now the housing market crash, which is super interesting to me. Crap, there's another book on there that I'm reading. I don't even know how many books we're at right now. We're at like 5, 6, 7, 8-ish right now. There's a couple other down here. Give me just a second. I'm like most of the way through that Changing My Mind book by Zadie Smith, which now I want to read. So we're going to call that 9. Now I want to finish it because I'm probably 80% of the way through it. Let's see here. Yeah, at least 8 books. And I'm probably forgetting one. I think there's another one on the audiobook on my Audible. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to call it 8. And that's the number of books that I'm in the middle of. Ain't that super inspiring and not depressing at all? I need to just finish some of these books. I'm really close on The World as It Is. Drinking through that audiobook pretty successfully whenever I get time. So. Valentina is reading Salinger. Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams plays. Heck yes. I know Sadie and I are both big fan of Tennessee Williams plays. Linguistic books, some Japanese literature. Yeah. Let's see here. I have not read Interpretations of Dreams, I'll say that. Has anyone read I Captured the Castle? Who is that by? Terrell, who is that by? Oh, alright, gotta drink some more beer. Almost done with this thing. How are we holding up? We're almost done. I'm gonna do one short story here in a second, and we'll go from there. Sean is headed out of here. Sean, thank you. 4 a.m. Woo! God bless you for staying up this late. Yeah, see you later, man. Thanks for hanging out. Let's see here. Italo Calvino. That is the dude who wrote Upon a Winter's Night, A Traveler, right? Which I don't own, but I've heard from about 1 million people. Actually, I'll be honest. So House of Leaves by whatever his name is, Danielewski, however you say it. Danielewski, House of Leaves, and Upon a Winter's Night, A Traveler by Calvino are the two books that were most often recommended to me during my MFA. When I was like writing parts of this novel that I was working on and writing different stories, the two books that were most often written in the margins of my writing by classmates and professors were, hey, read these two books. So I need to. They've been on my list. God, the list always gets bigger. The Non-Existent Night. Interesting. I Captured the Castle was written by Dodie Smith. Nice. Chronic. I have never actually read any Barbara Kingsolver, but my girlfriend just gave me Animal Dreams to read. So, Terrell says hello. Or goodbye. That was really bad. Terrell says goodbye. Goodbye, Terrell. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you have a good night. Let's see here. Calvino's Non-Existent Night is super short. Okay. I'm going to put that on my wish list then. Alike says, love the stream, Ryan. Pluto gang for life. Pluto gang. Thank you, Alike. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to read the short story that's going to cap this thing off. I've been reading from this collection. I picked a little bit of a shortish one for today. We're kind of running out of shorter stories, so I'm interested to see where we go from here. Some of these stories are a little bit longer. Two of the long ones I've read are really good, but this one's a little bit shorter. It is called Fish Sticks. Yes, apparently it's tonight. Tonight is the inappropriate night. Fish Sticks by Donald Ray Pollock. It was the day before his cousin's funeral, and Dell ended up at the Suds washing his black jeans at midnight. They were the only pants he owned that were fit for the occasion. Even Randy, the dead man who didn't give a fuck anymore, would look better than Dell. The one decent shirt in his trash bag that had Troy's Bait Shop stenciled across the back of it. That wasn't all. Dell was with a woman he couldn't get rid of no matter what he did or said. Every time he dumped her off at the group home, she beat him back to his room with a fresh load in her automatic pill dispenser and another wad of clean underwear. To make matters worse, she kept bugging the shit out of him with these fish sticks she reeled up from the bottomless pond of a plastic purse. Wow, this is weird. They were cold and greasy, feathered with gray lint. And even though she was probably the best woman Del Murray had ever been with, gobs of bare-knuckle sex, the latest psychotropic drugs, a government check, he was still embarrassed to be seen with her in public. Anyone who's ever dated a retard will understand what he was up against. Dell bought a box of soap from a little vending machine that charged exorbitant prices and poured most of it into the washer, then walked over to the bulletin board. Every laundromat has one, a place on the wall where people can peddle their junk or swap their kids. There was a notice for a big tent revival over on the hopeless side of town, a crudely written flyer promising a better life, something that Dell had craved for a long time. In one corner, a cartoon Jesus floated on a pink cloud above the earth. In the other, a bloody fiend sat in a prison cell, snacking on a plate of skulls labeled like homemade preserves. Junkie, wino, homo, whore, atheist. It was designed to scare the fuck out of the type of people who wash their clothes in a public place. But more than anything, the poster dredged up memories for Dell, reminded him of the time he and Randy wasted an entire year attending the Shady Glen Church of Christ in Christian Union just to win a prize, a little red Bible that fell apart the first hot day. They were 8 years old. Several years after they dropped out of Sunday school, Randy and Dell enrolled in a mail-order Charles Atlas course. This was back in the days when a kid could still change the course of his life by filling out one of the order forms found in the back of a comic book, a long time ago, years before the fish stick girl was ever born. A new envelope filled with exercises arrived in the mail every week, but Dell couldn't get into it, all that work just so you could tear a phone book in half. Instead, he shoplifted a paperback from Gray's drugstore in Meade called Reds. Dell wasn't much of a reader, but he needed something to kill time until Randy gave up on building a different body. Dell would never forget Reds. He probably read it a dozen times that summer. It had the same powerful effect on him as the public service announcement on the radio about the guy who ripped his arm open with a can opener so he could blow dope in the bloody hole with a plastic straw. Oh my god, that sounds painful. Ugh. In the book, a clean-cut hero named Cole picks up these two runaway girls who shoot sleeping pills in his dad's new Lincoln. For Dell, it was like flipping on a light switch. By the time the crazy bitches dropped acid and torched the hippies' crash pad, he knew exactly how he wanted to live his life. Man, you gotta read this, Dell said, waving his copy of Reds under Randy's nose. They were listening to a Hendrix album while Randy stood in front of the open window and worked out in the nude. Charles Atlas was big on sunshine and fresh air, which probably would have been fine if you lived on the moon, but in their county, the smog from the paper mill made everything smell like rotten eggs. Randy had already scratched the shit out of Purple Haze, and Jimmy kept repeating, "While I kiss the sky, while I kiss the sky." Glancing out the window over Randy's shoulder, Dell saw a dirty brown cloud drifting by, high over Knockemstiff, the holler where they lived. They live in a place called Knockemstiff. That's amazing. Randy glanced at the cover of the book. God, I love words and books so much. A lot. I like it a lot. Randy glanced at the cover of the book, the picture of a four-eyed boy and the two wasted chicks standing by a highway sign with their thumbs in their pockets. He snorted in disgust, then took a big gulp from the jelly glass of raw eggs he kept by the bed. He was up to a dozen a day. Sweat was dripping off the end of his dick. His stomach resembled a car grill. "I could break that son of a bitch like a pencil," he said, flexing his biceps. "Shoot, this guy gets more pussy than you ever dreamed of," Dell said. "He don't need no muscles either." "Bullshit. Girls love muscles. What about the guy who gets sand kicked in his face down at the beach?" Randy asked. "You don't even like to swim," Dell pointed out. "Look, girls don't care how many push-ups you can do. They just want to get high and wear flowers in their hair. Maybe steal a car." "Yeah, then we end up in jail like your brothers." "Hey, I begged them to read this before they broke into that gas station." "Gas station," Dell said. "What the hell are you talking about?" Randy yelled. He'd already started another set of leg lifts. Dell reached over and cranked up "I Don't Live Today" past the little piece of tape that Randy's brother Albert had stuck on the volume control. The speakers started making a funny noise, like someone was pounding the piss out of them with one of the dumbbells lying on the floor. "I say we go to Florida and find these girls," Dell said, holding the cover up to Randy's red pimply face. It's like hippie heaven down there." "Damn, Delbert, that little one looks like somebody's sister," Randy grunted, just before the speakers blew. The fish stick girl took off her army jacket and loosened the belt on her skinny jeans, then got down on the floor in the laundromat amid the fuzzballs and cigarette butts and started doing stretches. Dell figured that somewhere along the way, probably the night he hogged Oliver Haldol, he'd confessed that he got a kick out of watching other people work out. It wasn't a kinky sex thing, but more like the pleasure a person gets out of seeing their best friend lose a job, or what? The pleasure person gets out of seeing their best friend lose a job or some rich bastard go down in a plane crash. He wondered what other secrets he might have revealed. Dell watched his pants slosh around in the window and tried to ignore the sexy sighs of the fish stick girl emitted with each slow movement. Though she'd been cursed with certain defects, she could bend into shapes that most people associate only with circus freaks and world-class contortionists. It was, he knew, just another part of her plan to make him a slave. On the bus going to Florida, Dell read Randy the juiciest passages in Reds over and over, but always avoided the ending. By the time they hit Atlanta, Randy had even memorized the entire chapter about the Spanish fly orgy in the abandoned beach house. He became convinced that the psychotic Dorsey would be waiting for him when they pulled off into the gas station at St. Petersburg. After his cousin nodded off, Dell slipped back to the restroom and tore out the last few pages of the novel. He didn't have the heart to tell Randy. No, can you hear me? Hello? Things started jumping a lot and I'm really nervous. Are we back? Okay, I'm really nervous here. Okay, if this thing, God, it's all the technology. If this thing goes down, we'll finish this story next time. So I'm gonna say this now. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I've loved getting to do it again. I'm gonna keep reading. If this thing goes down, we're gonna go continue it next week. But I'm really hopeful that the stream is gonna hold on at least until this story is done. I saw things start to skip for a second, so yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys. Real quick, I'm gonna catch up on some comments just in case I leave anybody hanging. Let's see here. Knock 'em Stiff is author Donald Ray Pollock's hometown. Holy crap. That's incredible. It's a real place. The world is amazing. I love books, but I also love the world. What in the world? This sort of sounds like Naked Lunch or Burroughs. Yeah, I agree. Burroughs for sure. This is Burroughs out the butt. It's Burroughs except with like narrative. I like Burroughs, but like a little bit more narrative. Quote, writing tales consists in an ability to draw the rest of life from the little one understands of it, but life begins at the end of the page, and one realizes that one knew nothing whatsoever. That is from Italo Calvino, The Non-Existent Night. Billy Pilgrim is here. Hello, Billy Pilgrim. How are you? The devil all the time. Huh, okay. Who's the author again? It is Donald Ray Pollock. And apparently, Billy Pilgrim has read them already. Okay, I'm going to continue. So I'm going to back up just a couple sentences in case any of that was lost in the stream. After his cousin nodded off, Dell slipped back to the restroom and tore out the last few pages of the novel. He didn't have the heart to tell Randy that Dorsey, his little needle queen, had jumped off a bridge and drowned when the cops started closing in. I'm hungry, man, Randy said the morning they hit the Florida state line. There were rows of orange trees along the highway. Everything smelled like air freshener. Look, those oranges are as big as basketballs. No, I mean, I'm losing muscle fat, Randy said. I got to find some eggs. It was true. Randy was starting to look like a rubber doll that had stepped on a nail. He was deflating before Dell's eyes. We'll buy a dozen as soon as we get some money. How we do that? Randy asked, his voice cracking. Does it say in that book how we do that? Don't worry, Dell said. This guy tells you everything. 3 days later in St. Petersburg, they met a hot dog vendor named Leo. He was dumping new meat into a stainless steel steamer. The smell of snouts and eyeballs wafting from the stand had been driving Dell and Randy crazy ever since they'd started sleeping under the pier. Come by my place this evening, you, Leo said, handing the boys a couple of hot dogs along with an address scrawled on a matchbook. Go ahead, eat up, you, he said, winking at Randy. Hey, Dell, Randy said later, you think that guy's funny? Dried mustard was plastered on his chin. Who cares? I can't go home, that's all I know. My mom will kill me. How much you figure people will pay for something like that? Randy said. Leo came to the door wearing a flowered bathrobe and a pair of old tennis shoes with the toes cut out of them. His swollen feet looked like a pair of sea urchins. He lived in a sad motel room with black tar footprints on the dirty carpet, somebody else's sand in the tub. It was the kind of place that Dell would always gravitate toward later on. The kind of dump where something always happens that nobody wants to admit happened. He can wait outside, Leo said, nodding over at Dell. No way, Randy said. I ain't staying here by myself. What, you think I'm going to bite it off? Nibble it like a little fish stick? Leo said, laughing. All right, at least have him stand over in the corner so I don't have to look at him, you little fraidy cat, you. Then he handed Randy an old wrinkled Playboy to look at while he got ready. The magazine was evidently Leo's idea of foreplay, but some other kid had already drawn pointy beards on all the naked women. While Leo was in the bathroom gargling mouthwash, Randy instructed Dell to smack the bastard in the head if he saw any blood. You heard what he said, Randy whispered. Shit, he might be a cannibal for all we know. He pointed at a lamp by the bed that had blue seagulls flying around a yellow shade. He grabbed Dell by the shoulders. Don't fuck this up, Randy said. Dell walked over and pulled the lamp plug out of the wall. Then he stepped into the corner and listened to the ocean just a block away. He could hear little kids squealing in the undertow, happy vacationers laughing in the sand. The whole world seemed louder that day at the Seabreeze Motel. What you thinking? The fish stick girl asked. She'd finished her workout and was washing her hair in one of the big metal tubs with the last of Dell's detergent. She wore her hair parted down the middle, one side dyed jet black and the other side platinum blonde. It made her look like she had two heads. Nothing, Dell said, staring out the window at the SUD sign swaying gently back and forth in the wind. Geez, what an answer, she said. You always say the same thing. Well, don't ask then. Somebody had etched, "Will work for dope," across the grime of the window with a shaky finger. Dell turned away, satisfied that he would never get that bad. The fish stick girl turned off the spigot and began squeezing the soapy water out of her hair. Sweetie, I'm telling you, she said, your best bet is the Henry J. Hamilton Rehabilitation Center. It's a lot of paperwork, but I know some people. What makes you say shit like that? Dell asked. He lit a cigarette, ignoring the no smoking signs hanging everywhere. Because you're the type that does well in a constructive environment, she explained, sounding like she was reciting a poem. I noticed that the first time I saw you. At least you should take the test. Dell decided to ignore her. I keep thinking about the time Randy and me went to Florida. I ain't never been that hungry. You couldn't buy a job. It was so bad. You used to work? She asked incredulously. Well, it was a different world back then. I got more fish sticks, she said, reaching for her big purse. Put those goddamn things away, Dell said. It's almost 30 years ago. You never go hungry at the Henry J. Hamilton Center, she said. They have special activities. Wanda keeps track of your SSI. Shoot, they even have some old lady do your laundry. We could be snuggled up watching TV right now. I always tip her a fish stick. Look, I told you, I ain't moving in that place, Dell yelled. Suit yourself. So why'd you go to Florida? I don't know, Dell said. I read this book. I guess you could say we were looking for a better life. Did you find it? The fish stick girl asked. No, it was just a goddamn book. I ain't read one since. When Leo finished with Randy, he motioned for Dell to help him up. The old man was gasping for air. Dell could hear his knees crackle as he stood up. They sounded like a landslide in an old cowboy movie. A white dab of Randy's jizz lay on his bottom lip like a salted slug. Leo's bathrobe came loose, revealing purple stretch marks that crisscrossed his bloated belly. Then he farted and limped over to his Listerine bottle, tipped it up like a wino with a jug. Randy just stood there like a gas station loafer, silent and dazed, waiting for another car to pull in. Leo scooped some change out of a jar and sprinkled it in Randy's hand like he was pouring gold dust into a little bag. That's it? Randy finally said, staring down at the nickels, dimes, and quarters. There's quite a bit of money there, Leo said. I let you suck my dick, Randy yelled. Quiet down, you, Leo ordered. That's all I'll pay for something like that. You got a lot to learn, you. I could have had more fun with a slab of bacon. He pulled a sweet roll from the pocket of his robe and chomped the end off of it. Now, he said, take your ugly friend and get out of here, you. Boys like you are nothing but trouble. Flaky crumbs floated through the air like tiny golden gnats. Randy looked over at Dell and nodded. "I want more," he said, and Dell swung the lamp at the fat man's head. The fish stick girl grabbed hold of one of the metal poles that people hang their clothes on and started twirling like a dancer in a strip club. Dell dropped his soggy jeans in the dryer and walked back over to the window. He watched her reflection spin faster and faster in the glass. Her long hair flew behind her like a cape. It seemed to Dell that she would surely fly into the wall or bounce off one of the big metal machines. She began emitting a high-pitched squeal that sounded like an ambulance rushing down the highway looking for something to feed upon. Dell backed away and waited for the inevitable crash. It was like being at the Atomic Speedway on family night, hoping for someone to fuck up and die so the kids could have a good time. Not long after Randy won the Mr. Ohio contest, Dell stopped by to ask a favor. "No way," Randy said. "You never pay back." He was leaned back in a chair behind a gray metal desk in the garage he ran with his brother, Albert. The big trophy sat behind him on a shelf. "You're famous now," Dell said, figuring he'd try a new angle. "What's that feel like?" "Hell, I don't know," Randy said. "It don't make me no money if that's what you mean. I didn't even get the Bob Evans commercial." He kept squeezing a little rubber ball with his hand. His ears flexed every time he mashed it. Dell couldn't imagine him selling sausage patties on TV. "Look, man, I ain't never said anything about what happened in Florida. You know that." "Ha, Delbert, that's all you ever talk about," Randy said. "Shit, you even told Sheriff Matthews." "How about 200, Dell asked. "They won't let me back in my room." "I ain't got it. You realize how much the drugs cost to win a big contest?" "I got more tied up in these arms than you'll steal in your lifetime," Randy said. "Look, I'm not telling you what to do, but you better get out of here before Albert comes back. He ain't liked you since you fucked up his stereo that time." Eventually, Randy's heart grew too big for his body. He was one of those pincushions who never took a break. Never take a break. The kind that get hooked on size regardless of the consequences. "They won't let me smoke," he wheezed when Dell stopped by the rest home to see him. Dell looked over at the oxygen tank standing beside the hospital bed. The nurse had told Dell that Randy was strapped down because the medication made him hallucinate. He hoped maybe his cousin had some pills stashed away. "Shit, you don't smoke," Dell said. "What would Mr. Charles Atlas say about that?" "I'm way beyond old Chuck now," Randy said. "Give me weed." "Maybe they just want you to get better," Dell said weakly. "Fuck that, I'm a dead man. They say my ticker's big as a football. Come on, Delbert, give me a fucking cigarette." Dell loosened the top restraints and handed Randy his pack. "Watch that door," Randy said. "That 1-8 is a real bitch." Dell watched Randy gag on the cigarette in between hits off the oxygen mask. "Hey," Dell finally said. "Remember that book I used to read all the time? Dorsey and Cole and... shit, I can't remember the other one." "Holly," Randy said. "Her name was Holly. She was practically a virgin." "Yeah, that's right. Jesus, I can't believe you remember her name." "Now, that Dorsey was something else," Randy said. "God, I wish I'd met her when I was benching 600. I'd have tore that up." "Christ, Randy, it was just a book. I mean, those people weren't real or anything." "Oh, no, you're wrong, man. They were real. More real than most shit, anyway. I still think about her." "What's that tell you?" "What about the old man, then?" Dell whispered, leaning in close to the bed. "Do you still think about him?" "Jesus, Delbert, you act like that's the only thing in your life that ever really happened. Fuck that old bastard. He got what he deserved, the way I see it." Dell stood up and began pacing around the room. "Hey, while you're up, hand me that magazine there," Randy said. Dell glanced around, saw an old copy of Ohio Bodybuilder on the website, or on the windowsill. There was a picture of Randy on the cover. Dell looked at his cousin in the faded photo, the victory smile, veins popping out everywhere. He handed over the magazine just as Randy took another hit off the cigarette and started coughing. It sounded as if someone was busting his chest apart with a jackhammer. He dropped the cigarette on the bed next to the oxygen mask. A small fire erupted in the sheets. When Dell grabbed the water pitcher, Randy waved him away. "Get the fuck out of here," he gasped. As Dell hurried out the door, he turned back to see Randy ripping up the magazine and feeding photos of his glory days to the flames. Dell had the feeling that he'd go on forever, which is a great feeling, really, especially after you've watched your cousin commit suicide with a Marlboro. When the fish stick girl finished her acrobatics and slid down the pole out of breath, he pushed her down on her knees behind the restroom door. Act like you're doing this for money, he said urgently, unzipping his pants. Here? Why not, Dell said. This place is dead tonight. How much money? She asked, settling back on her heels. I don't know. Enough to buy a hot dog. A hot dog? Not much. Just some change, Dell answered, placing his hands on her wet hair. He closed his eyes and began to hear the ocean off the Florida coast and the dryer's muffled rumblings. Inhaling the dank laundry smells, he thought of Leo's mildewed carpet. He pictured the lamp in his sweaty hands, felt the weight of it, saw the seagulls make another pass around the shade. The fish stick girl kept banging her face into his groin, and for a moment Dell was 15 again. He was on a Greyhound going south and reading that section in Reds where Dorsey fires up barbiturates for the first time. Randy was sitting beside him, squeezing his pecs together and urging him to jump ahead to the chapter about the black guy named King Coon who knocked the white girls up with his thumb. Then they were laughing, pointing their own thumbs at some blonde woman seated across the aisle. When Dell realized it was over, he looked down and saw the fish stick girl smiling up at him. He'd forgotten all about her. After he folded his clean black jeans, Dell and the fish stick girl left the suds and headed up the street. It was 1 o'clock in the morning and the air was cool and damp with dew. Boy, you sure got into it, the fish stick girl said. What was so funny? I think I saw my cousin. Nobody ever told me that before, she said. Have you been taking my meds again? Well, I appreciate it anyways, he said. You're welcome. Now you do something for me, she said, opening up her purse. What's that? Here, she said, shoving a fish stick in Dell's face. Dell hesitated, then grabbed the fish stick and bit a cold chunk off one end. It didn't taste like fish at all, but he imagined it was something else anyway, the way the devout do with the little wafer and the grape juice. Okay, now close your eyes, she said. Dell shut his eyes. Don't peek, she ordered. As she pulled him down the street, he pretended not to know where they were going. She liked that. Oops. She liked that. Cracking his eyes open, Dell saw thick black clouds move across the sky and covered the moon like a grave blanket. He closed his eyes again and crammed the rest of the fish stick into his mouth. Suddenly, he was very tired. He felt like the ragged ghoul staggering across the screen in an old movie, the piece he always sought out of reach. They walked on, the fish stick girl leading him by the hand. And that is Fish Sticks. What a weird day it's been. It's been a weird day of reading. It's been a potentially inappropriate day of reading, and I apologize for that if you weren't expecting it. But also it's been the right kind of like sad, good, desperate, dirty, grimy, good stuff. Yeah, I liked that. I think that story is not a good one if it doesn't have that whole thread about the book that he's reading in it, because I think that makes the whole story. Like that's what's gonna stick with me in the future at least. Yeah, I don't know. Thoughts? Weird, explicit, dark, sad. Yeah. Nice and gritty. Pluto gang for life. Sadie is off to bed. This was probably a while ago. Goodbye, Sadie. Thanks for hanging out. Always a pleasure. Billy Pilgrim's also maybe out. Marsalian is out. Awesome. Thanks for coming. Pluto gang. All right, I'm going to sign off of here before this thing poops out on me. I want to actually get a chance to say goodbye. So if you are still here, thanks for hanging out. It's been a lot of fun. Man. And just like that, I spilled my beer. So I was grabbing it to say cheers to you guys. This was a great night, and I love getting to hang out with you guys. Steven says, thanks for the bedtime story. Time to teach tomorrow. I hope your sleep isn't disturbed by that story. Have fun teaching the kids tomorrow. You're doing God's work, Steven. Headed to bed is Jar. Have to go to bed. Good night, everyone. Instagram live version of this. Yeah, dude, I'll post on Instagram at least about when I'm going to do this here a little bit more. That way people know. And I'll try and schedule it in advance too. So thanks for hanging out. We'll do it again next Monday. I'll decide a time and I'll schedule it either here or I'll post something on Instagram. So I will see you guys later. I'm going to go clean up this beer that I just spilled. All right. See ya.